Yesterday, something miraculous happened. I misspoke. I said that I'd done EMEA. When I hadn't done EMEA, I'd done Pacific. So today we're doing the EMEA power ranking here. And yeah, let's just do what we've done the past couple days. If you haven't checked out those videos, go check them out. Well, let's just dive in and start with BBL. So here is the BBL roster. Obviously, they just signed the BBL Pacific roster to become their roster. And interestingly enough, their first game they play against Pacific Esports. So yeah, that one's certainly going to be an interesting grudge match for this team. And where will BBL place in EMEA? I think that is quite an interesting question. Again, I'm going to start them off as middle of the pack. You know, they've been pretty good. They're a team that's played together for a while. So I am just going to, for now, keep them in the kind of middle of pack teams. Okay, next up we have Fnatic, who obviously have made one change. Vekaj coming in here for Chronicle, and Fnatic's first game will be against the winner of BBL versus Pacific, which you should think that they should be favored in that game. I would assume so. So Fnatic, obviously, we are expecting to be pretty good. And for that reason, Fnatic obviously will be going towards this upper group. I'm not 100% sure they'll end up as number one, but they're definitely going to be up there. Okay, next up is FUT, who are now my team. Let's go FUT. And they made two changes to their roster, bringing in Crystalli and Baha for Krex and CNED, as it was at the end of the season. So this is their new team. Personally, like, if you want the kind of unbiased TMV take on, you know, my new team, essentially it's that I think a couple changes were somewhat necessary, and they still should have the main pieces in place. I think bringing back Geis is just a good decision. You've still got a good IGL in Mr. Fallen. You've still got a very good duelist in Zeus, and you've still got Yetej, who's an extremely good player as well. And you're just hoping that the two new players can kind of help support, you know, kind of the system that is already in place. But despite the fact that I am signed to them, I'm not going to go crazy. You know, I'm not going to show my bias too much yet. We'll put them in this middle of the pack. You know, I'm hopeful they'll be up here, but for now, let's be realistic and put them in the middle. Okay, next up we have Gentlemates, who are playing against FUT, I should have mentioned, in their first game. So that, I think, will be a good test for both teams. Here is the Gentlemates roster. And what's interesting about EMEA, and I think Gentlemates fit into this as well, is that, like, this is a team that I can convince myself could be pretty good, right? Like, Mini, we saw, you know, have some flashes last year. We know Martine can be good. You know, Starkso was a good tier 2 IGL last year as well. Bippo and Glyph have shown things in tier 2 also. So that does make you think, like, maybe there is a shot here for Gentlemates. I'm not 100% sure I want to put them in this group, though. Maybe I will. This might end up being a very big group here in EMEA as I kind of separate it later. Okay, next up we have Giants, and Giants' first game will be against the winner of FUT versus Gentlemates, which whoever wins that game is the game that Giants, you know, will certainly have a decent shot in, and they're just running it back with the same team that obviously made champs. Now for Giants, I'm not quite ready to say like, oh, they made champs, they did decently in champs, you know, they kept it all together, let's just keep them in here. I'm not sure I'm willing to do that, because I do think that, you know, basically did just have a good stage 2 playoffs, and that made their way to champs for them. So I'm going to put them in this group for now. But obviously, of the teams that will be in this group, they're probably the most likely candidate to, you know, end up, you know, getting up here. Okay, next up, we have KC, whose first game is against Navi, which I think is a really interesting, good game as well. The new KC roster is this: DOS9 coming in, Levin coming in from BBL, Shados, Sugetsu, and Aves, the two that have been here before. And I think they've got quite a bit of talent here. So again, I'm going to put KC in this middle group. As I said, this middle group is going to be pretty big here in EMEA, but I think that's just kind of the way EMEA is. Okay, on to Navi, who now have Angel as their head coach, if you weren't aware. They're playing KC. They've kept, you know, some of the pieces, Xiao, Hero, and Ruxic from last year. They bring in Sociable from BBL, which is a really good pickup, and Filu as well. Now, my question about Navi is mostly centered on Filu. I think this will be a pretty good team overall here for Navi and be very competitive. Filu, I think, is a very interesting pickup because he didn't have that good of a time last year on Koi and was prone to making kind of overheating mistakes and things like that. So if they can get that out of Filu, from what we've heard, it seems like, you know, he's one of those players that just can pop off in a scrim and get like 40 kills all the time, which obviously, if that is the case, if you can translate that to the stage, then this is going to be a very scary team. But again, because I do have those doubts about whether that will be the case, I also am going to put them in this middle of the pack group. Okay, now we're on to Pacific, who obviously lost all of their team to BBL, and as of yet on VLR, they have not announced their roster. So we don't 100% know their roster. We do have a rumored roster, however. And that rumored roster is this: CNED, Cooper, Alorante, Seven, and Ninja, which does have some interesting pieces on it. Obviously, CNED, Seven as well coming in over from America's Tier 2, TSM. But I'm not sure how high the ceiling is. So for that reason, Pacific is going to be my first kind of lower ranked team here overall. Okay, next up we got Team Heretics, and Team Heretics, they will be playing against the winner of Navi versus KC, which should be a good challenge because whoever wins that game is probably going to be a decent team. So that is actually a game that Team Heretics could lose, I suppose. It wouldn't be impossible, but they probably will be favorites, of course, for that game. No matter who wins. And the one change that they made was, removing Miniboo and bringing in Comeback instead, which is certainly an interesting move. We haven't really seen Comeback, be that like star player that he was in Tier 2, but obviously if he can do it on this team, then they're going to be a very scary team. And so for Team Heretics, I do think that Comeback will at least probably be a similar-ish level to Miniboo, and we know that that probably means that they're going to be a pretty good team. Okay, next up, we got Team Liquid, and Team Liquid's first game will be against the winner of Ulf versus Team Vitality, which could be a pretty big challenge, obviously, if they do get a good Team Vitality coming in. And their roster has changed significantly, right? You've obviously still got Nats here, you got Camo from Leicester as well, but you're bringing in Purpo, Wayne, and Miniboo, kind of from all different areas. Miniboo from Team Heretics, Purpo from, Giants / Tier 2 EMEA, and Wayne all the way out playing for VCT Esports. Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag here from Team Liquid, but they did this last year essentially, and it ended up going very well. But unfortunately, I do think that the loss of Kiko is a massive loss for this team, and so I have to put them in this middle group as well. Okay, now on to Team Vitality, whose first game is against Ulf, and this is their team. Obviously, they kept Durka, they bring in Profek and Yampi from BBL, they bring in Sayonara, who they did sign last year, but is still too young for kickoff, and obviously they bring in Chronicle as well. Now, Unfake will be their sub for kickoff, while Sayonara is not old enough, so they will be playing with Unfake, and because this is a kickoff ranking, we will be taking that into account. So for Vitality though, I do still think that the duo of Durka Chronicle is enough to probably put them in this upper group just here, but I don't think they'll be ending up number 1 because they are playing with a sub. And then finally, we have Ulf here. Now, Ulf as well, their first game is against Vitality, and this is their team. Now, 2 of their players actually aren't old enough to play, so in the game, we think that they are going to have some subs in Stern and Demure as well, so this actually will be a little bit of a nerfed Ulf. And for that reason, for kickoff, the fact that they're playing with 2 subs, I am going to have to put them in this lower group. So now let's order the teams, and I think I'm going to have to put Pacific lowest and then Ulf. We actually need a team to come all the way down to 10 here as well. So we now have to pick through this big group just here. And this is where it gets very difficult because I actually do feel pretty good about quite a few of these teams. I mean, this feels harsh, but I actually think I'm going to put Gentle Mates down here in 10th. But again, I think there is a world where they actually end up being pretty good. I really do think that the middle of EMEA is extremely close and competitive. Next, I think I'm going to go for BBL. Man, I mean, now it is getting pretty tough because I do feel pretty good about most of these teams. You know what? I'm going to do something that will annoy people and probably shock some people. I'm going to be a bit bold here. I'm going to put Team Liquid next. Probably does feel like too much of an insult to Nats, and I do agree with that. Do feel pretty good about these other 4 teams here. Like, I'm a pretty big believer in these other 4 teams. Team Liquid could finish 3rd. Like, none of that would shock me. I'm going to pick my own org to go next. Just because, one, I don't want to seem too biased. I don't want to put too much pressure on them. But let's keep the pressure off for now. I will obviously be hoping that FUT do finish higher than that. But let's keep the pressure off them for now. In 6th, see, I really do like the KC and Navi rosters. I really do. So I actually kind of want to put Giants in 6th. And I know this is bold. I know a lot of people might kind of disagree with this. I know, in particular, I know Sideshow isn't that high on KC. But I really think that KC roster might kind of cook a little bit. To the point where I'm going to put KC in 4. And then we have the top 3. Now, because they are playing with Unfake in there, I do think I'm going to put Vitality 3rd for that reason. I did kind of want to put Team Heretics number 1, but I do think there's just more questions, and I do think it probably just is more logical to just stick Fnatic in number 1. So that is my EMEA power rankings. In the next couple days, we'll be doing pick'ems, and we'll go through the whole pick'em bracket, and I'm gonna get 100%. Just you watch.